A strange thing happens to almost everyone who meditates seriously. At first, you sit down because you want peace, clarity, relief, and a mind that finally stops behaving like a caffeinated monkey with a mortgage. Then you discover something genuinely beautiful. Stillness is real, joy is real, softness is real, and the mind can become quiet. The heart can become wide. The breath can feel like a holy hymn inside your ribs. But sooner or later, spiritual ambition creeps in. It starts whispering, "Yes, but what's next?" And suddenly, the practice is no longer simply practice. It becomes performance, conquest, and a subtle hunger wearing the robes of wisdom. This is why daily Buddhist practice in ordinary life is not optional. It is the foundation that makes good meditation possible. Without it, meditation becomes a beautiful room built on swampy ground. You may still sit, and you may still have pleasant experiences, but the whole structure tilts and sinks because the causes were not clean. Meditation does not happen in a vacuum. It grows out of the life you live when you are not meditating. Most people think their meditation object is the breath, loving kindness, body sensations, a mantra, or awareness itself. But the deeper truth is simpler. Your real meditation object is craving. Your real meditation object is reactivity. Your real meditation object is the moment you feel uncomfortable and instantly try to escape it. That moment appears far more often in daily life than on a cushion. It shows up when you are interrupted, when your phone buzzes, when you are tired, when you do not get what you want, and when you do get what you want, but immediately fear losing it. It appears when boredom creeps in, when you want to be right, when you want to be admired, when you want to win. If you do not train in those moments, meditation becomes a theater where old habits hide behind spiritual makeup. A person can sit for 1 hour and look peaceful, then stand up and become harsh over tiny inconveniences. This is not a personal failure. It is simply cause and effect. If daily life is full of untrained greed, aversion, distraction, and dishonesty, then meditation will be built out of those same ingredients. You cannot bake a sweet cake from salt and then complain that it is not delicious. In Buddhism, ethics are not decorative morals or a badge of purity. Sila is practical and intelligent. It is the way you stop poisoning your own mind. When you lie, even small lies, the mind becomes tense because it must remember what it invented. It must protect an image. It must manage fear. When you speak harshly, the heart hardens, even if you feel justified. When you indulge in careless pleasure, the mind learns a reflex. Unpleasant feeling equals immediate escape. Then, later, you sit down and wonder why you cannot stay with an ache in the knee, a dull sadness, or a restless itch without panicking. Your mind was trained all day to run from discomfort, so it runs during meditation too. Daily Buddhist practice is the training that makes the mind less complicated. It removes inner noise and produces a kind of cleanliness, where meditation becomes natural instead of wrestled into being. The mind settles not because you squeeze it into stillness, but because you stop feeding it the ingredients of agitation. This is why the Buddha spoke so strongly about wholesome conduct. He was not building a religion of good behavior. He was describing the mechanics of peace. Right speech is one of the clearest examples. If you want to know why your mind will not settle, check how you speak. Gossip creates a world, complaining creates a world, sarcasm creates a world, performing creates a world, arguing creates a world. Each world has gravity, and gravity creates consequences. Then you sit down to meditate and wonder why you are still hearing the echoes of that conversation from 6 hours ago. Of course you are. You carved it into your mind with your own tongue. When you simplify speech, the mind simplifies too. When you speak gently, your inner atmosphere becomes gentle. When you speak truthfully, the heart relaxes. When you speak less, the mind becomes less crowded. When the mind is less crowded, Meditation stops feeling like trying to practice in a nightclub with flashing lights and someone screaming your name from across the room. Sense restraint is another practice that sounds boring until you realize it is secretly a superpower. It does not mean refusing joy, refusing beauty, or becoming a stone statue. It means learning the difference between contact and consumption. A sound can be heard without chasing it. A sight can be seen without grabbing it. A taste can be tasted without turning it into an obsession. A feeling can be felt without obeying it. Much agitation does not come from the world itself. It comes from the habit of chewing reality until it becomes a story, and then chewing that story until it becomes a whole inner drama series with multiple seasons. If you spend all day feeding your eyes and mind with constant stimulation, meditation will feel like trying to stop a river with your hands. The river will not stop, your hands will simply get tired. Daily practice means reducing unnecessary stimulation, not because stimulation is evil, but because you are training a deeper freedom. Freedom is not found by getting more. Freedom is found by needing less. Now we come to the subtle hindrance that looks like wisdom but smells like craving. It is the hunger for ever more profound techniques. It is the endless search for the next method, the next teacher, the next hidden shortcut, the next special state. This craving is a hindrance in itself because it is built on the assumption that what you have right now is not enough. That assumption is a form of dukkha, a subtle dissatisfaction, and it keeps the mind leaning forward. Even if you do advance practices, even if you experience bliss, the mind is still disturbed because craving does not want happiness. Craving wants more. More is a horizon that runs away forever. That is why people can collect techniques like rare coins and still not be free. They are practicing the religion of next retreat, next attainment, next absorption, next realization, next label. The irony is sharp. The mind becomes still when grasping ends. So if you grasp for stillness, you perform the exact movement that prevents it. You cannot clutch the signless. You cannot demand cessation. You cannot force liberation. The hand must open. Good meditation is the fruit of a good life. Meditation is not a technology you operate. It is a state that ripens when causes are present. Those causes are deeply ordinary. Patience, humility, sincerity, restraint, kindness, honesty, forgiveness, moderation, and steady effort. When these are present in daily life, the mind becomes less guilty, less defensive, less irritated, and less addicted to stimulation. Then meditation deepens without drama, not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding the causes of restlessness. A person who spends the day being mindful, kind, and restrained is already meditating. When they sit down, they are simply continuing what they were already doing. A person who spends the day scattering the mind into 10,000 desires is also training, but they are training distraction and then expecting samadhi at night. The mind does not switch careers that quickly. It becomes what you repeatedly practice. Real practice is not only when incense is burning and your posture looks heroic. Real practice is when you feel the first spark of irritation and you do not fan it into fire. Real practice is when you want to interrupt, but you listen. Real practice is when you feel lonely and you do not reach for stimulation like a sedative. Real practice is when you make a mistake and you do not punish yourself with shame. Real practice is when you are praised and you do not get drunk on it. Real practice is when you are blamed and you do not build a war room in your mind. There is nothing wrong with learning methods, refining technique, and becoming more skillful. But the motivation matters. If the motivation is love for the path, it becomes nourishment. If the motivation is deficiency, it becomes poison. A simple test is this. If you cannot do a basic practice joyfully, calmly, and consistently, then searching for something more advanced is usually avoidance. The mind hopes a new method will rescue it from the humble truth that the work is repetition, patience, and letting go again and again. You do not need perfection, you need sincerity. Keep the precepts as best you can, not from fear, but from wisdom. Watch your speech as if your peace depends on it, because it does. Reduce unnecessary stimulation so your mind has room to breathe. Practice generosity because it loosens the fist of self. Practice gratitude because it dissolves the trance of not enough. Apologize quickly because dragging guilt into meditation is like carrying bricks into a swim lesson. Forgive often because hatred is a meditation object that never leads to freedom. Be moderate because extremes are exhausting. When you sit down, do not sit like a hungry person trying to bite enlightenment. Sit like someone who has nothing to prove. Sit like someone learning to be at peace with reality. Sit like someone who understands that the mind becomes still when it stops trying to be somewhere else. The deepest meditation begins when you stop demanding depth. The most profound moment appears when you no longer chase it.